Yeah, I sold this film to Paramount, and contractually it had to be a certain running time, which led to tacking on some bonus footage.
I'm sorry that scene has to end. So, Jude, what did you think?
I liked the movie.
Do you remember anything from making it?
No.
How about you, Joe? What's it like? You know, your films are often really personal, and this one seems especially captures a moment in your life. Could you talk about what it's like to revisit it 5 years later?
Yeah, it's really fun to watch. You know, the house has changed. Didn't you think the house looked a lot different?
Yeah.
Yeah, we still live in the same house, but it's interesting to see. We shot the movie at the tail end of 2012. I had just made a film called Drinking Buddies, and I made this a few months later, and then we sort of had to give Drinking Buddies 2013 to run its course, which meant that Happy Christmas didn't premiere until Sundance 2014 and sort of came out over the course of that year. So, long time ago at this point, so it is really interesting to see, yeah, just sort of the house and the situation. Certainly, my wife, Chris, is a filmmaker, not a novelist, but it definitely was touching on a lot of things that we were dealing with in terms of our artistic careers and childcare and trying to balance that out.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about it is that it deals with family life in a way that you never see portrayed in film. Is that something that you feel was missing that you wanted to add to? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a little alienating to be in a situation that you don't feel like you ever see represented in the media. I mean, I think we're at a point now where a lot of different communities are saying, like, wait a minute, why aren't there ever representations of us? But yeah, I mean, certainly as we were having a lot of conversations with our artistic friends who were having children around that time, including you and a lot of people that I was talking to, you know, it's like this was coming up again and again. Suddenly you go from being really autonomous and in control of your time and how you use it, and suddenly, you know, there's all these other priorities. Yeah, it's like, you know, the scene between the three women down in the basement bar where they talk about that was really, you know, sort of like sounded like a lot of conversations we were having at the time. It's a double-edged sword, you know, you really want to be involved, and it's nice to be sort of, you know, like able to be so present in your children's lives, and then at the same time there's this desire to be doing your own thing and having adult space and workspace and all that. And, you know, I mean, we still, 6 years later, haven't really, you know, I mean, it's still complicated all the time in all kinds of different ways. And we have a daughter now who was Jude's age in the film. And yeah, there's just constantly new challenges and ways to deal with things. My wife is actually in Los Angeles right now casting her new movie, so Jude and I snuck up here. And my brother, who Anna Kendrick's character is based on, is watching my 2-year-old daughter right now. So I'm having a very Melanie Lynskey experience where I'm texting and checking in. I'm like, everything's okay, right?
This film came at a part in your career where you started working with bigger name actors, and it was right after a series of films where you experimented with form a lot. Can you talk about how this shift affected or didn't affect your working methods?
Well, it was interesting because Drinking Buddies was certainly a much bigger budget film compared to anything I had made at that point. But, you know, it's like going from a year where I had made six or seven, you know, there's sort of like, anyway, within a 12-month span, I had made 7 feature films, extremely low budget, like 1 week shoot each, less than $10,000 each, like really, really small, to suddenly making, you know, a like $750,000 movie with movie stars in it. And I was like, whoa, this is really crazy. I had to navigate a lot of changes all at once, working with a much bigger crew, a bigger budget, having, you know, sort of dealing with the schedules and infrastructure of bringing in those bigger actors. So coming off of Drinking Buddies, which had been a really great experience for me, I mean, I loved making that movie, but I was just desperate to get back to something smaller And so Anna had been in Drinking Buddies, and I just was blown away by her performance. And still, she's just one of my favorite people I've ever worked with. And so I just texted her in the fall, and I was like, "Hey, what are you doing in December?" And she was like, "Nothing really." And I said, "Do you want to come to Chicago and try out a similar method to Drinking Buddies, but something much tinier?" And Melanie Linsky I had met in the casting process for Drinking Buddies, and I didn't have a role for her in that movie, but I just loved her work. And so I texted Melanie and pitched her the idea, and everybody just kept saying yes. And December is like a nice time for actors usually, where the Hollywood films have sort of shut down for the year, and people are kind of around. So we carved out that window and we made the movie, very 12-day shoot, five-person crew. All the actors did their own hair and makeup and wore their own wardrobe and stuff. And we shot it in my house, and so it was a really tiny, low-budget, chance to kind of get back to where I had come from.
They're all really great in it. Do you do rehearsing with them?
No, we shot everything and we were shooting 16 millimeters, so how you doing? Good? Yeah, we shot 16, so we didn't, it was a tiny budget, so we spent a lot of our money on film and didn't have unlimited shooting,
right.
So we were really doing 2 or 3 takes of everything. But yeah, they were great. They're pros, and so even in that kind of chaotic working environment, we were really worried about Jude. I had never tried to work with a 2-year-old before, but actually he was great. The sound guys let him wear their headphones and play with the boom mic, and the camera operator showed him the camera. And we really spent a couple days just getting acclimated to the house and letting him get used to us being around. Mm-hmm. And by the time we were shooting, it was like he was not paying attention to the camera at all, just kind of existing and doing his normal thing. Yeah,
Jude, you give a really natural performance. Does seeing this make you want to act more?
Yeah. I usually want to make another one.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Was it fun to watch yourself?
Well, yeah.
Do you think that you look and act a lot like Abby does now?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Uh-huh.
What were you thinking about while you were watching yourself on the screen?
I don't know.
Was it funny?
So you mentioned that you shot this on 16. What led you to do that after you were so kind of associated with video? Like your early films could only have been made on video, feels like.
Yeah, well, when I went to film school, we did everything on 16. It was a very old school program, and we, shot on 16, recorded audio on magnetic tape, cut and conformed our own negative and finished the film prints. So, having gone through a very rigorous film-based education, getting out of school financially, shooting on video made sense, but, in the wake of Drinking Buddies, which I think, by the time we shot Happy Christmas, we all felt that the film had turned out good and might be successful. I was like, now's the moment to really try this out. And film, it was just so obvious that film was dying, and I thought if I don't do it now, I'm just going to be one of those people that's like, I never made a movie on film, I should have done it. And Ben Richardson had just shot, before Drinking Buddies, had shot Beasts of the Southern Wild, which was Super 16, and so he was, just like still very familiar with all the equipment and everything, and I thought, all right, this is great. I have a cinematographer who really knows 16, and I have a film already in the can that I feel confident enough is going to do okay, that we'll just take the leap of faith and make this little movie on film and cross our fingers.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll ask one more before I turn it over to you guys. About since this film, a lot of your output has been television. You were one of the first people I was aware of 10 years ago who started making like serialized stuff for streaming, and now that's what you've been doing a lot. Can you talk about what that's been like and how that, I'm sure it's like astronomically different now.
Yeah, well, it's, what's amazing is that the difference is the support that I have. make a TV show called Easy, which is a Netflix series, and we've done 2 seasons, and we're about to do season 3. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the process, it feels very similar to Happy Christmas. I mean, about the same type of stories that we're telling, and it's all set in Chicago and feels very, very connected to just real people in their lives. The difference is then it goes up on the Netflix platform and the whole world kind of gets it all at once, which is a very different process than trying to sell and promote an independent feature film. So I've managed to retain all my favorite aspects of filmmaking, and then plus, it pays better and there's a bigger audience. So it's a pretty good situation at the moment. But that show's going to come to a close after this 3rd season, and then, I'll probably go back to making movies. And I think the question for me right now is, do I go back to making stuff like Happy Christmas, or do I try and make something a little bigger coming off of Easy? I don't really know. I mean, watching the movie again tonight, it feels so close to what I want to be doing. And it's just like even fun to revisit that dilemma of 2 artistic parents trying to balance that stuff. I mean, still, you don't see that story. It's not like suddenly a lot of people got interested in the lives of, working class characters or something like that. So, yeah, it's really like been a nice, in a way, a diversion from the features, but there's so many like through points and connections that it doesn't really feel like TV to me, or it feels like I got to do TV my way. But yeah, I mean, to me the writing is on the wall. I mean, the audience seems to be shifting towards television. So while I'm compelled to maybe try and pitch another show or work in that medium again, I think like artistically I'm ready to make some movies.
Cool. Do you guys have any questions for Joe? Sure.
You're credited as the writer here, just as you are on other things I've seen on the show Easy. But this movie, anyway, doesn't feel written so much as outlined. And I'm wondering, A, how much time do you spend actually just sitting down and writing a script, or how much of it do you spend just outlining an idea and let the actors go?
Yeah, I spend almost all the time just outlining an idea and letting actors go. Bizarrely, I am a member of the Writers Guild union because of various jobs, which means I have to take a written by credit on the movie or pay a penalty for not. And so if you watch my older movies, they almost always say written by me and the cast, but that just became a union issue at some point where you can't co-credit everybody like that. But I certainly feel like the actors deserve a lot of responsibility for that, and I am very much just outlining broad strokes of the movie.
And a sort of follow-up question, if I may, is a lot of those scenes again where they're sitting around and discussing the ideas for the book, or in basement drinking, or a number of other ones. Were those scenes where you just kind of shot one shot over a long period of time and then just edited out what worked the best?
Yeah, it's a combination of that. Typically, it's probably 3 long shots drawn out and then editing between them. And Ben Richardson, who shot the movie, also operated the camera and has a really good instinct for creating cut points. So without having to break the take or slow down the actor's flow, just moving the camera around and making sure that in the editing room we can make that feel like coverage, even if it was sort of one continuous thread. Okay.
Yeah.
Close one. Any other questions for Joe? Sure.
Joe, I was curious, working in your own house for that amount of time, did you continue to live in it, or did you intentionally move out during that period?
We continued to live in it. I mean, we didn't really have money to do anything else.
Okay.
Shooting in my own house saved us money, and then, yeah, we kept the shoot pretty short. It was 2 weeks in the lead up to Christmas, and yeah, we just stashed the equipment around based on where we were and what we were using. The basement kind of became like an equipment holding zone, and then we we tried to be smart about shooting out certain rooms in order so that we could, you know, kind of move around and have that situation be livable. And I've tried it again. In my, you know, my house keeps changing over the years, and so I'm able to repurpose it for different locations and stuff. And yeah, I mean, my wife's a filmmaker too, so thankfully we're, you know, she sort of is patient and understanding about that process. But yeah, it's like a little disruptive, but it's kind of a family business, so everybody just gets used to it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if that is actually your basement, and if so, have you kept the basement intact?
Definitely.
Awesome.
The basement has only gotten better. It's
Awesome.
not, yeah, we bought the house from a 91-year-old woman, and yeah, her husband was a World War II vet who was sort of the first wave of tiki people. And yeah, it was all original when we moved in. We actually put it in the contract that we wouldn't buy the house unless they kept the basement exactly like it was. And yeah, we're still, the only thing I've added is a chemical photo booth down there and the karaoke setup.
Okay.
And now I'm done messing with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so relying on outlines and improvisation with your actors, could you describe a little bit about the process, how you direct a scene, and has that changed at all from like your super micro budget days? It was slightly less micro, but.
Not too much, actually. I mean, you know, the things that have changed, I tend to write more these days because I have less time. Like, we shoot easy on a really quick schedule. We get 4 days per episode. And this movie was quick, and so was Drinking Buddies and some of the other recent features. So I write more than I used to because I am having to get everything in a shorter amount of time. But on a scene-to-scene basis, I don't rehearse. I mean, I'm a little superstitious about it. Like, I want the first take on camera because oftentimes that is the most interesting take to me, or the, you know, it's the process of the actors figuring it out feels the most right to me. And then I'm always balancing the naturalism of it with trying to cover a scene in a semi-traditional way, you know, creating cut points and making sure that when I get to the editing room, I feel covered. But, you know, there's certain scenes in this movie where there's just jump cuts, with, you know, from a wide to a wide or something like that. And in terms of working with the actors, it's typically like the first take feels like the writing take, where everybody's feeling it out, and then we tend to sort of hone in from there. People feel like, yeah, like maybe a second take is 50% of a rehash of the first take, while also fine-tuning and revising certain things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And the outlines change based on the project. Like, you know, with Happy Christmas, I probably wrote maybe a 3 or 4 page outline for the whole movie. But then on some other recent projects, I've written, you know, 60, 70 pages, even with sample dialogue and stuff like that. Just depends on how long of a shoot we have, and also how well I know the people I'm working with. Like Jake Johnson and I have made several projects together lately, and we're writing a lot more together because we're writing for him. And so the improv is often happening in the room during the writing process, and then we know his character really well, and then we're leaving the other characters more open for improv on set.
Anyone else with a question?
Did you just film someone rolling 5-3s, or was it edited in?
That actually happened, yeah. For one take. I mean, it was unbelievable, yeah.
That's the kind of magic you get.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. I was just sitting there watching it going, there's no way it's going to happen. And yeah, it was amazing.
All right. Anyone else? Yeah.
Was it shot in Super 16?
Yeah, exactly.
And how much did you I'm losing it.
Well, I won't put you on the spot.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just curious about if you said that Anna Kendrick's character was based on your brother, the decision to like make her Gunner, I guess, that character.
Yeah, well, I wanted to work with Anna. I mean, coming off of Drinking Buddies, like writing for her was really appealing to me, but my wife and I had had the experience of my brother coming. My brother was in school in Lexington, Kentucky, and then sort of wanted a change in his life and decided he would try Chicago, and we had just bought the house. Jude was really little at the time, and so there was an appeal to having my brother move into the basement. You know, it was always going to be temporary. I was like, stay here for a few months while you find an apartment and figure that out. And also, you can help us out with some babysitting and stuff. And then it was almost immediately that my wife was like, he's not allowed to babysit. And then I was
Look
like,
at him
well,
now.
why is he living with us? Like, I thought the whole point was free babysitting. So yeah, then that became, you know, he ended up living with us for 3 sort of tenuous months leading up to Christmas of that year. So yeah, I sort of like, he gets really annoyed because he's like, I didn't do all of that, and everybody thinks the movie's about me. I did change things. It's not autobiographical in that sense, but changing it to Anna also was a nice little bit of additional cover for him, as the movie's sort of humiliating for him. No, he seems to be having a good time with my daughter right now. They're both safe and the house is not burned down. The pizza incident happened for real though. That is autobiographical. On the day before he moved out, by the way. So, I woke up at 4 a.m. to a terrifying fire alarm and a house full of smoke, and then the next day he didn't apologize and moved out.
All right, well, that seems like a good place to. Thank you so much for coming.